there is a kind of a tendency to view sustainability as a premium in architecture, and suddenly your projects have predominantly built on developed economies, and they depend on a lot of technology. You talked about using different kinds of paints and zero cost here, but talk me through this idea of cost. Does sustainability necessarily cost more?
Like some friends of mine, Claes and Koivisto Rune, the Swedish architects, they once gave me a T-shirt that says, "If you think good architecture is expensive, then try bad architecture." I would say most of our work is built on the same commercial criteria as all other sort of developer-driven projects. Of course, in the case of environmental performance, I would say in the short term, there will often be things that you can do that make a lot of sense, but they will cost you upfront.
Right.
Like if you just take photovoltaics, they're going to cost you something today, but they will earn themselves back typically in a decade. So there is a return on investment. We just finished our own headquarters in Copenhagen, and the building is founded on energy piles. Of course, the energy piles, you have to pile anyway to carry the building, but by lacing them with infrastructure for heat pumps, there is a certain upfront cost, but you earn it back quite quickly because you get a 5x on the energy you use for the heat pumps. You get five times as much heat and cooling in return. If you have a long-term view, 20, 30 years, 50 years, then there is no premium to sustainable design. But there's a lot of examples where there's something you can do today that will cost you more today, and it will take some years to earn it back. And I think, for instance, like right now we're working on the design of on a sports arena in a desert. So it has to be enclosed for climate control, actually, and it's designed with a series of like nested shells, and the shells are oriented so that the clear stories face away from the sun to the north. So you get an abundance of daylight inside, but all the direct sunlight is hitting the shell, and therefore it would be perfect with a photovoltaic skin akin to what we did for Google's headquarters. And of course it comes with a premium, and the return on investment is a bit long. It's like it's a couple of decades. So at least with the current energy costs, right? So we are having to sort of find very good arguments why would it be worth it to spend the money now? Of course you'll earn the money back in 20 years, but you might be able to do other things with that money. But then maybe it also like really elevates the perception of the building. Maybe there are certain sponsorships, which is an important part in Major League sports, that would find it more desirable if the environmental narrative. So you almost have to sort of list a sort of a cumulative argument on many different fronts, and maybe in aggregate that starts making the case for the photovoltaic cladding, like.
Yeah, I mean, the case for sustainability with an owner-occupied building is well known, right? So if you're the owner and you're gonna use the building and pay the bills, then of course you take a long-term view. How do you make that same argument to a speculative developer, somebody who is going to build something and then sell it off very quickly? How do you get private developers to think about the larger urban condition?
I think it isn't true that public and private interests are always at odds. Because I think in the case of city development, of course, the people living there, they want a lovely, lively environment. They want life on the street, so it's safe to walk at all hours of the day or the night. They want free space and green space. They want a desirable and attractive neighborhood that's fun and to live in and safe for the people there. And essentially, the private developers, they want the same. They want to elevate the status of the neighborhood so that it is deemed as attractive and desirable. They want they want to attract good footfall for the retail on the ground floor so they can get good occupancy and charge good rents. And of course, they also want the homes to be attractive so that the rental value and the occupancy remains high, or the sales go well, right? So in that sense, like, when you're thinking as an architect to try to sort of constantly emphasize this synergistic view where you take into consideration the confluence of many different concerns. And I think the more holistically you can think, the more you can elevate the quality and perception of the neighborhood, the more value you are creating for your developer, but also for the future residents, right? So I think in that sense, our first project here in New York was the VA57. We called it the court scraper, that combined the communal space of the European courtyard with the density and verticality and the views of a skyscraper, right? And in that case, the oasis really became the identity-defining feature, and one of the reasons that people choose to live there, because they have their own little central park at the heart of the block. But of course, we couldn't have done it if we wouldn't achieve the same density as a tower podium. So, but our developer says that they charge comparatively higher rents and have higher occupancy than the neighboring projects they operate in the same area. So in that sense, like that kind of holistic thinking, the power of form giving can really create value.
For a long time, the argument for green design has been a better indoor environment, right? So the green mantra is that, if you design green, you'll get better productivity, you'll get better comfort, and therefore that translates to returns on investment. You get better occupancy and so on. What's interesting here is that there's a shift from focusing on purely what happens inside the building to what happens beyond the site boundaries. So the building becomes a relational object. It has a relationship to the city that either enhances connectivity or it kind of pulls back and creates an oasis within a city. That's kind of selling now. Is that what you're saying? That idea that your relationship to the city through that development becomes a selling point, and developers are seeing that.
Yeah, I think in general developers do understand that their interests in a way transcends the doormat. That I'll say, if you speak with any real estate agent, they will say value is derived from location, and location, right? And it's not the same location. It's location as in the zip code. What kind of a neighborhood are you in? That sets a certain criteria. Then it's location as in the immediate surroundings. Is there a park right adjacent, or a view, or the solar orientation, whatever? And then it's location as in where are you located within the building. Like, obviously the penthouse is more valuable than
right.
So I think in that sense, the first two locations have to do with something beyond the footprint of the building and the space inside. So, and therefore, like, and I also say, like, if you look at a city, there's, I don't know, 5% public buildings. There's a fire station, there's a police station, there's a museum, there's a library, there's a school. But the majority of the building is really where we live, work, and shop, and maybe park. And if all those buildings were just self-serving, selfish, citizens, then you would end up having a rather poor city. But if each of these buildings actually end up contributing to the neighborhood, to the ground floor, to the skyline, to the public realm, then you start having a richer and richer city. If you're installing the heat pumps and the photovoltaics and the natural ventilation, low energy consumption and local energy production, then over time each building can become part of a giant decentralized power plant. That each building in itself is a machine that feeds itself, but also feeds the city. And I think with the Joint Research Center for the European Commission in Sevilla, we're succeeding in that the building really produces twice as much power than it consumes itself. So, and if all the new buildings start doing that, maybe slowly but surely you end up with a city that is in itself a vast distributed power plant.